I walked into the bank with a smile on my face. After so many years of saving, I was finally ready to open my bakery, the one I dreamed about since the kids were little. I could already see the sign above the door, smell the fresh bread, and hear the laughter inside. I walked up to the counter, gave my name, and told the lady I wanted to move some money from our joint account. She typed something into her computer, then paused. Her eyebrows came together. I'm sorry, there's no money in that account. I blinked. What? She turned the screen toward me. All I saw were zeros. Empty. My heart dropped. That can't be right. My husband gets the bank alerts. He would have told me. She looked at the screen and then at me, then said slowly, Ma'am, the alert number was changed 6 years ago. She clicked again, then added, It was changed by your husband. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mouth went dry. I pulled out my phone and called him. No answer. I called again. Nothing. I stared at the screen, hoping it would change, hoping the numbers would blink and show me it was all just a mistake. What can be done? I asked the bank lady. My voice came out small. Is there any way to trace the money? She sighed. We'll need to open a case. It might take time. There's a lot to look into. Time. The word kept ringing in my head. Time. I had given 20 years of it. Trust, patience, love. And now, I had nothing. I walked out of the bank with shaky steps, holding my handbag like it might fall apart too. The sun felt too hot. The air felt heavy. People were walking past me, laughing, buying food, living life, while mine had just cracked open like a dropped egg. I sat on the pavement near the car park and pulled out my phone. I called him again. No answer. I opened WhatsApp. Pressed record. Why? Where are you? You said you were taking care of us. How could you do this to me? Pick up your phone. Please. I kept sending voice notes. My hands were shaking. I didn't even know what I was saying anymore. People walked past me. Some stared. I didn't care. I finally stood up and began the slow walk to the bus stop. I couldn't even bring myself to call a cab. I felt sick. On the bus, I sat by the window. The streets flew by, but I didn't see anything. Just flashes. His smile. His promises. The years we spent sitting at the table planning our future. The nights I stayed up when he was out late. All the jobs I juggled, just to be sure we had something to fall back on. The mornings he said, Don't worry, I've got it covered. He had me covered, all right. Covered in lies. I got home and stood at the door for a long time before I could open it. Everything inside still looked the same, but I wasn't. Not anymore. My name is Casey Adams. I've been married to James for 20 years. We met when I was just 21. He was warm and charming, the kind of man who could talk his way out of anything. I thought we made a good team. We have two beautiful children, David and Zoe, who are both in college. I spent most of my early years raising them, making sure they had everything they needed. I took care of the home, the school runs, the doctor's appointments, the birthdays, and all of it. But I wasn't just a stay-at-home mom. I did small jobs on the side, baking cakes for neighbors, sewing clothes, helping people decorate their homes for parties. I didn't earn much, but every penny I made, I put it in that joint account. James always handled the bank stuff. He'd say, Don't worry, I get the alerts. Everything's fine. And I believed him. The plan was simple. Save for retirement. Build something for the future. I didn't need much. I didn't want luxury. I just wanted one thing. My dream bakery. Something small and warm, filled with the smell of fresh bread and sweet pastries. A place I could call mine, after giving so much to everyone else. That dream kept me going through hard days. It was the little spark I held onto, waiting for the right time. I thought James was holding onto it with me, but now, I know better. I couldn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, hoping it was all a bad dream. That may be the bank made a mistake. That maybe James would call me back and explain everything. But the phone stayed quiet. I sent voice notes. Long ones, some angry, some sad, some just me crying. I didn't even know what to say anymore. My heart felt like it had cracked open. The next day, I went to see my friend Tola. She's smart, works in a law office. I told her everything. She looked at me like she didn't know whether to hug me or scream. We checked again. The bank said if I wanted to take things further, I'd need a police report or a court order. I didn't want to drag my name or my kids' names through the mud. Not yet. I just wanted answers. Tola helped me dig. What we found made my hands shake. James had been draining the account for years, little by little. He used the money to fund some shady businesses. None of them worked. Then he vanished. And guess where he went? To live with another woman. He took everything we saved, everything I dreamed of, and gave it to someone else. I felt like my chest had a hole in it. My whole life, 20 years gone. Just like that. I wanted to scream. I wanted to disappear. Tola reminded me we could take legal action, and she said she'd fight for me if that's what I wanted. I shook my head. I've always been a strong woman, one who finds solutions the moment problems show up. But this was different. This was bigger than anything I'd ever faced. Still, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to waste another tear on spilled milk. There's always a way out. And if there isn't, I'll make one. I had two choices: stay broken or rebuild. So I picked myself up. I wiped my tears. If James could start over with stolen dreams, then so could I with what was left of mine. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to do something. I sold a few things: old furniture, some jewelry I'd kept in the drawer for sentimental reasons, and borrowed a little from Tola. She didn't hesitate. She saw the fire in my eyes and knew I wasn't just going to sit around and let my life fall apart. James hadn't come back since that day at the bank. I didn't know where he was, and frankly, I didn't care. The house felt quieter now, emptier. But it also felt like there was space for something new. The kids were away at college, and I found myself alone in the house, alone with my thoughts, my pain, and a little hope that refused to go out. I took a deep breath and made a decision. I cleaned out the extra room at the back of the house. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I set up a small workspace, bought a few new supplies, and started full-time baking. I called it Ashes and Honey. The name felt right. It was me. From what you burned, I baked. Every time I said it, I felt a little stronger, a little more like myself. The orders started rolling in. At first, it was just a few neighbors, but soon enough, word began to spread. Social media helped. My kids posted pictures of my cakes, and my story, the one of betrayal, survival, and strength, was shared. People reached out, asking for orders, sending messages of encouragement. I kept baking, and every time I pulled a tray of cookies or a cake from the oven, it felt like a piece of my heart was being poured into it. I didn't just change what I was baking. I changed how I looked at myself. I stopped hiding behind the woman I used to be. I became someone sharper, more focused. My voice grew stronger with every success, and slowly, the bitterness of what James had done started to fade. I wasn't just trying to survive anymore, I was thriving. Then it happened. My story went viral. People loved it. A local podcast wanted to feature me, and soon after, I was in a business magazine. It felt surreal, but there I was, on a podcast, talking about how a woman could rise from betrayal and build something beautiful. The orders kept coming in. I couldn't handle them all alone, so I hired a few people to help. I got a small team, and it felt good to know that I wasn't alone in this anymore. Eventually, I signed a contract with a hotel chain, and business boomed. My little bakery was no longer just a dream. It was real. I bought a building. It was a little rundown, but I saw its potential. I poured my heart into the remodel, every detail, every corner, every color. It was exactly what I had always imagined. Life was good. Business was good. But there were days when the pain of what happened would sneak in, and it would feel like I was back at square one. But those days were fewer and farther between. I had my business. I had my freedom. And I had learned that nothing, not even betrayal, could keep me down for long. I didn't hear from James for months. Not a call, not a text. Not that I cared. I was too busy building my own life, my own future. But somehow I couldn't help but wonder, was he out there struggling? Was he realizing what he had lost? Part of me didn't want to know, but another part, well, let's just say I wasn't going to pretend I didn't feel curious. Tola was the one who kept tabs on him. I never asked her to, but she did anyway. She had always been good at sticking her nose in people's business, and I guess she wanted to make sure he was paying for what he'd done. One day, she called me with the news. Casey, you won't believe this, she said, her voice full of excitement. James is done. Completely done. His business has crashed. He's living in a small apartment, no money, nothing, and no one will hire him. He's trying to beg people to help him. People he betrayed, people he used. Karma's finally knocking on his door. I didn't know whether to laugh, rejoice, or just thank the universe for finally teaching him a lesson. It felt like something I'd wished for in secret, but hearing it out loud, it was a strange feeling. A week later, I was busy wrapping up an order when the bell above the door jingled. I glanced up, expecting to see a regular customer, but then I froze. My heart skipped a beat, and the world seemed to slow as James walked in. He looked nothing like the man I had once known. Gone were the sharp suits and confident smile. His clothes were worn like he hadn't bothered to care for himself in a while. His shoulders slouched, and his eyes, those eyes that used to hold so much arrogance, were now hollow, empty. He looked like a ghost, a man who had been beaten down by the world. The sight of him made my chest tighten. He walked toward the counter, and I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. I hadn't thought about what I would say if he ever came back. I didn't know if I'd even want to look at him again. But there he was, standing in front of me like a man desperate for a lifeline. Casey, his voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. Please, can we talk? I've lost everything. I need your help. I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me, so quiet and cold that it made me nauseous. It wasn't victory. It was simply the reality of what he had done to me finally coming full circle. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him, letting the silence hang between us. I wanted him to feel it, the weight of all that had happened, all that he had stolen from me. My mind raced, remembering how he'd walked away from me without a second thought, without any care for what it would do to me. Finally, I spoke. You really think you can just walk back into my life like nothing happened? He flinched, his eyes pleading. I didn't think I'd lose everything. I didn't think it would come to this. Please, Casey, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Just help me. I swallowed the bitterness that had been building inside me for so long. I had spent so many nights thinking about this moment. I'd imagined what I'd say, how I'd feel. But now that it was happening, I was strangely calm. I wasn't the woman who would fall for his promises anymore. Without saying anything else, I turned and walked away from the counter. I motioned for him to follow me to a quiet corner of the bakery where no one could overhear us. I could feel his eyes on my back as I moved, and it took every ounce of control not to snap at him. Once we sat down, I slid a thick folder across the table right in front of him. I had kept this waiting for the moment he would reappear in my life. His hands tremble as he picks it up, looking at me like I was holding a weapon ready to strike. What is this? He asked, his voice weak. I leaned back in my chair, watching him carefully. These are your records. Your bank statements, the transactions you made to clear out my account, the screenshots of everything you did behind my back. His face turned pale as he flipped through the pages. I could see the realization hit him. The guilt, the panic, the shame. You really thought I wouldn't find out, James? I said, my voice flat. You always thought I was too soft, too trusting. You were right about that for a while. But not anymore. Now you need me. I let the words hang in the air, letting him feel the weight of them. There was no sympathy in my voice, no anger, just the cold, hard truth of what he had done. Please, Casey, please help me. I have nothing left. I don't know where to turn. Part of me wanted to tell him everything I had planned in my mind, to let him feel the same helplessness, the same betrayal I had. But another part of me felt something deeper, something almost colder than I had ever imagined. I had come so far. I had built something from nothing. I wasn't about to let him destroy that. I've forgiven you, James, I said slowly. my gaze never leaving his. But forgiveness doesn't mean I owe you anything. You took everything I had. You took my trust, my future, my peace. But look at me now. I built something from nothing. I built this empire from crumbs. You can do the same. If you're man enough. His face fell. I saw the spark of hope in his eyes, but it quickly dimmed. He didn't know how to respond. He was lost. I, he stammered, but I interrupted him. Don't come back here, James, I said, standing up. I turned and walked away without a glance back. My heart pounded in my chest, but it wasn't from anger or resentment. It was because in that moment, I had finally realized how far I had come. I was done being the woman who needed to forgive and fix everything. I had learned to stand on my own. But James still had one more thing to learn. I wasn't finished with him yet. A few days later, the phone rang late that evening. I'd almost forgotten about James after our encounter. My focus back on the bakery and the life I was building. But when I saw his name flash on the screen, my stomach turned. I let it ring twice before answering. Casey, please, I can't do this on my own. I've tried everything, but no one will give me a chance. I'm begging you, I'll do anything. Just give me a chance to work, please. I heard the desperation in his voice, but there was something else, something new. Maybe it was the weight of his failure, or maybe it was the realization that he truly had no other options left. I took a breath. I'd already made my decision, but this timing was important. I'll help you, I said finally, but not the way you think. I'll give you one last chance. He was silent, his breath shaky on the other end. I've arranged for you to work, for me, starting tomorrow at the bakery. It's menial work. Cleaning, running errands, doing whatever I need. You'll get paid very little, but you'll learn what it means to serve. You'll learn what it means to depend on someone else for once. He was silent for a moment, as if processing what I had just said. I knew it would be hard for him. I knew it would make him question everything. You'll be working for the woman you once betrayed, I continued. And that's the only chance you'll get. The line went quiet. I could almost feel the weight of the moment settling on him. You'll see what it's like to be at my mercy. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand what it's like to lose everything. And then have to start over. Finally, his voice came through, small and uncertain. Thank you. I almost smiled, but I stopped myself. This wasn't about gratitude. It was about him learning. It was about him seeing what I had built, piece by piece, from the wreckage he had left behind. Don't thank me yet, I said, before hanging up the phone. The next step was his, and I'd be watching closely. James came in every day, right on time, for the first 2 days. He didn't speak much. He just showed up, head down, hands shaking slightly. The first day, he cleaned. He mopped floors, wiped counters, scrubbed the oven, and took out the trash. It was nothing special, just menial tasks, and I could see the discomfort in his face as he did it. He hated every second of it, but I didn't care. He needed to learn what it was like to work for what he wanted, something he never did when we were married. On the second day, I gave him more responsibility. I had him organize inventory, restock the shelves. When he grumbled about how heavy the boxes were, I reminded him, "You didn't think it would be easy, did you?" By the end of the second day, I noticed his frustration building. He was snapping at the other employees, complaining about the tasks I had assigned him. He was irritable, trying to hide it, but I could see it in his clenched fists and the way his jaw tightened every time I spoke to him. At lunch, he stormed out of the bakery, slamming the door behind him. He didn't come back for the rest of the day. The following morning, he didn't show up either. I didn't call him. I didn't go looking for him. I knew that if he couldn't handle 2 days of humility, he wasn't ready to change. If he couldn't even begin to understand what it took to earn back some measure of respect, then he wasn't worth my energy. A week passed before I heard anything about him again. A mutual acquaintance mentioned that James had been living in a shelter. I wasn't surprised. It seemed like he couldn't handle being anything but the man he once was, the man who was always in control, always taking and never giving. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just an overwhelming sense of clarity. I had given him a chance, and he hadn't taken it. That was on him. If you loved this twist, just wait. There's more where that came from. Watch the next revenge story now and see karma strike again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories coming.